Let's explore how FormHandler works with charts and generates them. What we'll do to start with is create a new FormHandler and put in some data. So we have a fresh instance of Gramex where we are going to add a FormHandler, let's say add data. And this is going to contain a data set. Let's upload a file into it. We are going to add, didn't mean to open it. Let's close. Well, this is the file that we're going to add the songs data set. And let's drag and drop this file out here, preview it, that has some data, and let's click on submit. This is something we can do a quick preview of, and let's specifically go to the URL slash data. What you see is as a HTML file, it has the category, which is song, country, channel, genre, size, etc. Now, I'd like to see by country, so in the UK, in Germany, in Japan, etc., what is the distribution of size? For this, we are going to be using charts. So let's go to the code editor now, where we'll be adding the chart configurations. Specifically, you will be looking at the gramex.yaml file. And out here in the documentation, you'll see that FormHandler supports Seaborn charts. Seaborn's a server-side Python library, which has the ability to create some fairly flexible visualizations, either as SVGs or PNGs or even PDFs. Now, let's take a quick look at the gallery to see the kind of images that we can create. What we'll do is pick a few of these and show how that can be created using FormHandler on the server side. The configuration begins with under the quarks for a FormHandler by adding formats. You can specify any chart or any number of charts as a format, and we are going to create a chart called bar chart. This uses the Seaborn format of charts, and specifically we are going to be using a chart called bar plot. To see the list of charts that Seaborn has, you can go to the API and you'll see bar plot as one of the categorical plots. The output looks like this. You can have any set of categories and a set of values, and it shows the distribution of those values. So what we want to see is each country and the average sales in each country plus the variation. So that's what we are going to pick. You can choose an extension. This can be PNG, SVG, or PDF. The width of the chart and the height of the chart in pixels. The dots per inch, the default is 96 and we are going to pick 48. This, among other things, controls the size of the font. What is the column that we use in the x-axis? So what's going to go in here? And in our case, that's going to be country because we want to see it by country. The other parameter that we put in is y, which in our case is going to be the size because we want to see the y-axis is the height, which is the total sales that comes in. There are several other parameters that bar plot accepts. One that we don't need to specify is data because that will be automatically provided, but you can provide hue, you can provide what else there? The order of columns and a variety of other parameters that can just directly get added here. Finally, we specify that the header for this, the HTTP header, is content type image/PNG. That helps the browser render it as PNG. So what we'll do is copy this almost verbatim under quarks. So it needs to be specifically under the quarks below FormHandler, anywhere in any order. So let's paste it and we'll see that, well, actually it's not coming under quarks. It needs to be indented further. So let's put in a 2-space indentation. Now under quarks, we have headers, we have a URL, and we have formats. Like I mentioned, we want to change the x-axis. This is going to be country. And we want the y-axis to be size. So let's use size here. Now, with this, we've created a new format called bar chart. Let's test it out. Instead of HTML as a format, let me choose bar chart. And that gives me by country, what's the sales. Now, this is something that I can use to create a chart that is dynamically filterable. So this, for example, is the average sales across the entire data set. So all of this data. But what if I only want to pick the direct channel? Then what I could do is apply the form handler filter and channel equals direct. And that's going to show me the results only for the direct channel. We find that US is the highest, but Germany and Japan are pretty low. Whereas overall, Germany and Japan were kind of okay, doing fine. What about for the stores channel? Stores channel, Germany and US are pretty high, and so is Japan, but Russia is practically zero. This isn't ordered in the same way as the previous ones, so that can be a little confusing. So, why don't we do this? We will say sort by the country so that all countries have exactly the same sorting, and it'll always be Germany first because that's alphabetically the highest, and US last because that's the last alphabetically. So, now channel stores partner. Oh, that should be partners. Yeah, and then direct. We can get the images for each one of these. Now, these are just regular images. So if I took the format bar chart, this image, I can paste it inside a HTML file. For example, I could go to index.html and let's say we add a new paragraph. Uh, with an imgsrc is equal to this particular one. Now, since it's on the same server, I don't even need the full host name. I just say slash data query format equals bar chart. And let's add a heading. This is average sales by country. Now, when we go to the home page and look at the output, it shows me the average sales by country. I could below this add the average sales by each of the channels. So I could say, for example, img src equals slash data query underscore format is equal to bar chart, and channel equals direct. That's one image. Channel equals partners. That's another image. And stores. That's the third image. So that adds, did that come through? Yeah, okay. Uh, the three channels are displayed here, and I could probably put in a heading above each one of those explaining what these are, which I'm not going to do just yet. Now, this looks a little small. At least the font is not very readable. Can we increase the font size for all of them? Well, that's one of the things you can use DPI for. So if I make this 72, for example, reloading that gives me a slightly more readable font size, and we could live with that for now. Aesthetically, this doesn't look nice. I'd like it to be a little wider and bigger. And I'd also like to remove that learn more icon that we have. So how do we get this to be bigger? Well, we could increase in the gramex.yaml file the width and the height. But if we do that, everything will become bigger. So what I want is to be able to control just some charts. So one way of doing that is by specifying the URL query parameters as values here. So if I said, for example, in braces xcol, what, and I need to put quotes because otherwise YAML will get confused. Then this means that if I put question mark xcol is equal to something, that gets replaced here. Similarly, if I put width colon, quote brace width and close everything, if I put question mark width is equal to something in the URL, that allows me to change the width. Let's try that out. So I'll say quote brace width and close everything. Now, when I open this in a new window, it says I don't have a width. Fine, great. So I'll say width is equal to 1200. And that gives me a fairly wide chart. Well, I'd like to control the height as well. So let's do the same thing for height. And with that, I can now specify and height is equal to 500. That gives me a chart that I can use directly. So let's add that to our index.html. So we'll say question and width is equal to 1200 and height is equal to 500. I'll have to specify that here as well. So let's do that. And width is equal to 400 and height is equal to 300. Keep this small. Similarly, we'll keep this one small. We'll keep this one small and reload. So that gives me a big chart, and the other two charts haven't yet. Okay, yeah, there they are. And the other two charts are displayed right below that. Now, We can choose any of these parameters and change them based on the URL query parameters. That even includes the column that we group by. For example, instead of grouping by country, if I want to see this by genre, um, now, yeah, that shows me the distribution by genre, but I can make this also something that I can control from the URL query parameters. Instead of generating the output as PNGs, I could change this to SVG, but if I did that, I would likely have to change it here as well. And let's reload. From an output perspective, there ought not to be too much of a difference. Visually, something went wrong there. Okay, sorry. This should have been SVG plus XML. That's the correct MIME type. Let's reload that. And yeah, now we get the image, but the width and height looks like they need to be rejigged across the different formats. Let's revert to PNG for now. Now, this we used to create one kind of chart. Are there other kinds of charts that we could create with the same kind of structure? Let's look at the Seaborn gallery. Firstly, let's see what other options we could add to this. I said that one of the things that we could do was add the sort parameter. So let's quickly add that. Say underscore sort is equal to country. So that ensures that all of these charts are sorted by country. And now if we load it, we should see Germany first in all of them. Oh, sorry, that's if we choose this as country. Now we should see Germany as the first country in all of these charts. Yes, that's happening. Now, what are the other variations we can have on this? Looks like color or confidence interval we can define based on standard deviation. Cap size is one option that adds these caps. Let's try that out. So I put in cap size colon 0.2. What does that look like? Yeah, that adds a cap size out here. I could choose a different palette. Let's try that. We'll choose a blues palette as well, blues underscore D, and reload. Yeah, that gives us a blues palette, and so on. You can try out with each of the options such as dodge, hue, any of these variations, and you'll be able to create a wide variety of charts. You can also completely change the chart that is being displayed. Let's go to the gallery and pick something else. Let's say we go for swamp plot or strip plot sounds like a better idea. So now strip plot takes an X and a Y like before and potentially a hue. Data is not something we need to provide. Dodge, alpha, Z order. Let's try it out. So I'll create a new format. Instead of bar chart, we'll call it a strip plot and add a few of the parameters here. This is a strip plot and the rest of it we'll retain. Headers again as a PNG, and let's see what this does. Now, if I open one of these images in a new tab, rather than using a format as bar chart, I say strip plot. That creates a strip plot, and I can see that in the US there are three cases where it's like a really high price point. Similarly, in Japan, there are four cases where there's a really high price point. And this chart gives us slightly different, sometimes more, sometimes less, but certainly different kind of information about what's happening on this data set. Let's go back and change the images from, let's search and replace bar chart with strip plot. Did I get the spelling right? Strip plot. Yeah. And see the result. And we now have four strip plots, one for overall and one for each of the genres. This is a quick overview of how you can use Seaborn to create a variety of different kind of charts, and you can try these out. You can see some of the samples out here on the Gramex guide and use these in your own examples. In all of these cases, because the charts are generated on the server side, there is absolutely no load on the client side. And once you start caching them, it gets generated once and reused multiple times on the server side, which means that you can A, use it in a variety of different environments, and B, you can use it in a variety of different computational loads as well. One of the advantages here with images, for example, is that you can send these out as email as part of an attachment. You can send these out in a WhatsApp message. You can embed them in a Google Sheet or an Excel sheet. And in several environments where JavaScript is not available, these will still work. On the other hand, the disadvantage that you have with them is that they are not interactive, they are not clickable, there's no drill down possibility. And for that, we need a different kind of chart, which is handled by the form handler, the form handler Vega charts. We'll be covering that in the next session.